welcome to the very first video of our driver training tutorial series. This series is designed to help you get up to speed on all the driver training programs that I used in 2021. If you're looking for help on any specific program, it's best to probably jump over to that video. But today we're going to start by looking at Racetrack Builder and building a basic track model and implementing that in Assetto Corsa. So we're going to look into some of the more advanced features later, but today is just getting that basic setup done. So we're going to be looking at these three programs today. We're going to start in Racetrack Builder. We're going to spend most of our time there. KsEditor we'll use to convert between the two, and we'll test out our track in Assetto Corsa. Racetrack Builder and Assetto Corsa are purchased through Steam, and New Racing has a Steam login for that. Alright, so we'll jump into Racetrack Builder here. Okay, so this will pop up when you open the program. We'll type our project name up the top. So I might just call it Newcastle Kart. We'll design the Newcastle Kart track today. What we have here is with different texture packages. They don't really matter too much because we can change them once we're in there. Again, this width and depth, we're not going to bother adjusting it here because we're going to do it a bit later on down here. These you can probably just leave them as their default values that I have here. That basically adjusts the detail of the Google images. Alright, so this bottom section here is the Google Maps plugin. Basically how Racetrack Builder works is it gets data from Google Maps terrain and elevation data, and uses that, and you build your track on top of that, which is pretty nifty. So we have here two APIs, they're called. The first one here and the second one here. So that's for the maps and the elevation. I already have those there. There's quite a lengthy process to get those. It is a bit annoying to follow, which I won't go through today, but there should be a link that you can go through and follow that process if you need to. Alright, so jumping down to the next one here, latitude and longitude. So that's obviously just go in Google Maps, look up whatever place you want to model from, and then up the top in the link you'll see the latitude and longitude coordinates. So if we just copy and paste those across here, if we click on Google and then zoom in a bit, we'll be able to see our track there. So just zoom in so that you can see it, have it centralized, and that adjusts our width and depth up the top there. Alright, so quality, obviously the higher the quality of the terrain data, the larger the file will be, so take that in mind. But usually I go with high. Click OK, and then it'll load up our track. It can take around 5 minutes depending what sort of computer you're on. But yeah, just sit tight and I can hopefully speed that up for you guys. Alright, we've loaded up now. Unfortunately my computer storage was full before, so the video stopped recording, and I didn't realize that and did a couple of things, but that's alright. Alright, so we'll just go through some of the basic controls for Racetrack Builder. We have the scroll wheel on your mouse, can zoom in and out. It's actually a bit slow, so if you hold shift and scroll, you can go in and out, zooming quicker. The right mouse button, you can rotate the camera like so. If you hold shift and the right mouse button, I guess it rotates in a slightly different way. The left mouse button, as you'd expect, is when you want to select any objects. The center scroll wheel, if you click that in, you can pan. If you want to turn on your wireframe or your mesh, you can press W. As you can see the wireframe there. That part in the center there, that's what I was saying before. Some of the refinement I'd already done. If you want to delete something or go back, you can just press delete or Control Z, just like you would most other programs. Yeah, so they're the main controls. So we'll go through some of the different features of Racetrack Builder. So when you first start, you'll want to go to terrain and you want to go remove detail or add terrain. So what that does is you can add extra triangles around the outside, which you can see I've already done that, but we can add a few more up here maybe, or you can remove them as well. So you just want to make sure that when you're on your track, you're not looking at the edge of the world as such. Alright, so once that's done, then you want to go onto your mesh refinement and your circle subdivision. So another control I didn't say was this circle tool that's on the screen. If you hold control and move your mouse from left to right, you can make it a small circle or a big circle. And that, the bigger the circle, the bigger our subdivision tool, the smaller it is. So if we press W to get our wireframe up, so you can see I've already done a small circle subdivision across our track. So I'll do maybe even a bit smaller so you can see. Run over the track, and what this effectively does is the more nodes that are in a certain location, the more detailed the terrain data will be there. So obviously around your track you're going to want detailed terrain data, and once you get further away you don't really care so much. So yeah, you have it more refined around your track, less refined anywhere else. So that's pretty simple. The only other thing on your terrain tab is to paint the terrain with different textures, but that's not really part of this basic video. Alright, so we'll move on to tracks now, which is our second icon up here, and we have 4 different tools we can use in tracks. So as the name suggests, we're going to be making the actual track. So you can use this add new track tool. The little drop down arrow, we have either cardinal or Bezier. I suggest for this video we'll just stick with cardinal, but we might go through what Bezier is good for later. And so we'll click on cardinal. Then we have our some of our settings up here. So the default is 0.1 degrees camber, which is exactly what we're looking for. So usually I just have that on 0 and then adjust it to suit the track layout. The hierarchy is the lower the hierarchy number, so 0 is the lowest number. The lower the hierarchy, the more important that track is, I guess. So a hierarchy 0 track will cut across a hierarchy 1 track, so it takes priority if this cut track icon is selected. Alright, so we might just add this track. Basically to add a track you just left click, hold, and then from there you just click to put all your nodes, and just keep going around the track like so, and just get your kind of general layout. So I'm left clicking as I go. You'll see the green number, which is in 415 at the moment. That's your length of your track, and the maximum length is 1,000 meters. So if you get over 1,000 meters, it'll go red and it'll complain. So if you have a track that's longer than 1,000 meters, which I think this one will be, we'll have to make it in 2 different segments. So that's going to be longer than 1,000, fortunately. So we're going to stop there. Perhaps it would have been best to do it in 2 600 meter lengths or something. But we're going to add another track. So from there, and hopefully you see that little yellow icon. I should join up with that one. We go move nodes. So if we select that, we can then move any of these nodes that we wish. If we move this one, we can link that up to the other and do our track there. Alright, so that's your basic track layout. You can see at some points you get kind of this wrinkle in the corner if you have too many nodes. So we might just click delete, get rid of one of those nodes, and try and smooth it out a little bit. If you want to add any nodes in a particular section, say, I don't know, maybe we want a node over here somewhere, you hold Control and left click. So we can add a node there. Alright, so what we want to do now, you can see our track's a bit wide for what our track underneath is. So if we go here to the edit cross section, we can see if we click on a track, you have a yellow cross section at the start and at the finish of each track. And because our tracks are linked together, the cross sections of both of them are actually linked as well. So if we click on the cross section here, we can have a look at that. So we have each of these nodes you can move individually. If you want to raise or lower a section of the track, you can also delete any of them, or you can Control click to add a node. So that's pretty simple. When they get formed by default, they have usually roughly equal spacings. At each end, you have this yellow and blue arrows. So the yellow arrow moves the whole track up or down, side to side, and then the blue just moves one half of the track. Another thing I should add there, on each edge of the track you have this extra portion of the track that's not drivable, but still classified as part of the track system, I guess. Most of the times that's good to keep in there. Sometimes it can cause issues when you have overlapping tracks, and you can always delete those. Alright, so we're going to want to make our track a bit narrower. So if we go to move this in, it's sometimes difficult to tell if we've moved it up or down because it's a bit fiddly. So what we can do is if we hold X, we restrict the movement to the X direction. So if we hold X and move our arrow in, we can then move our track in the X direction. So we'll move that in a bit, do the same on the other side, until we can see our track underneath. Right, it's looking pretty good. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Arrow, move that in. Alright, yep, that's looking pretty good. If we wanted to say move it just in the Y direction, you just hold Y and move it up and down. So then it restricts the movement to just the Y direction. Alright, so now once it's a bit narrower, you can see it's pretty good in most places, but you can see it doesn't line up in some places. So this is when we go back to move the nodes, and we'll move all the nodes so that they line up with our track underneath. I'll just go through and do that with some of these. That's super easy. Good thing about Racetrack Builder is they've designed their user interface to be very user friendly. So everything's pretty straightforward, what you would kind of expect it to be like. Alright, so nearly there. Alright, and you can always go back later and adjust it if need be. Alright, so there we have a basic track. Let me just move this one a bit. The only other thing that's in our track tab here is change the materials or color of the track. A little bit dark at the moment, so I might just choose a bit lighter one. Left click on the track. Must be the same color, and then double click up there. Sometimes the colors up here look actually a bit different to what they do on the track. So left click on the track, and then double left click up there. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. We can add these in later, maybe in the next video. Alright, so the only other thing we need to have a functioning track is this last tab here, grid and timing grids. These other three we'll go through in the next video. Alright, so if I click on here, you can see we have a start line, which is already placed to be pretty good there. We have a checkpoint 1 and a checkpoint 2, which are all pretty nicely placed already. If you have specific checkpoints around your track where you want them to be, you can just move the little cars on either side. And that's where your timing sectors will be, and start finish line. So these other ones, we have a pit. So pit cars, the start and finish. We have, this is our spawn location, and we have our grid. So the grid and the pit aren't really super relevant to us when we normally only have one car that's starting on the track. So I'll move this all the way down to only one team. Obviously these are more relevant for if you have a whole grid of cars. So I might just place them all behind our start line here. So this is where our car's going to spawn once we get on Assetto Corsa. So really simply, that's kind of the simplest sort of track you can get. Obviously we don't have any details at the moment, and once we drive it, we're probably going to realize it's quite a bit bumpier than it looks like here. But yeah, we'll see how we go. So once you've finished a track, you want to obviously save your work, and then you want to go export. In the export tab, just keep everything as is and export everything. Alright, so that's exported now. So now we're going to move over to our second program, KsEditor, and open that one up. Alright, so what this basically does is we're going to open the FBX file that we created with Racetrack Builder, and we're going to save it as a KN5 file, which is what Assetto Corsa reads. So we go open FBX. Luckily it's already where our file was, but otherwise you just go through Racetrack Builder, whatever your track name is, export. So we'll double click on that. It can be, sometimes it can take quite a while to import, but obviously we don't have too many details in there yet. So the controls are a little bit different to navigate around in KsEditor. So you use your left mouse click to kind of rotate your camera up and down, etc. And you use your arrows. So I'm using like my left, up, down, right arrows to kind of, almost like you're flying a drone around. And if it's a bit slow, if you hold control in, you can go a bit quicker. So you can see already things look a bit nicer in general in KsEditor. It's actually quite good to go through and determine where your bumps are going to be. So you can see we're going to have a bit of a dip there in the middle of the corner. Sometimes it's easier to see in KsEditor than in Racetrack Builder. There's a whole bunch of settings that you can play around with in here with different cameras and lighting and stuff like that, but that's not really relevant at the moment. All we need to do is go File, Save KN5, and Track. And you're going to make sure that you call it the same name. So I'll just click on that and get rid of the FBX. Alright, so that's saved. So we can now close this. And I'm going to open up two windows. I already have a shortcut for my tracks. It is a bit hard to find. You'll have to find your Steam apps, Common, Assetto Corsa, Content Tracks. So I recommend that you create a shortcut like I've done here, or you can use Content Manager for Assetto Corsa, but that's something we'll go through in a later video. Alright, so in this other one, I want to go to my builder, Newcastle Kart, export, and find my KN5 file, which is what I'm going to use for Assetto Corsa. Alright, so these are currently all the tracks that we have on the Assetto Corsa. So I'm going to have to make a new folder for our Newcastle Kart track. To do that, basically the easiest way that I found is to just copy and paste one of these other folders. So I might take one of these ones, the RAF Williamtown Skid Pan, Control C, Control V, and it's made a copy for us there. And then we're going to have to name that the same as our track name. If it's not named the same, it won't find it. Which is right. And then once we go in here, I'm going to delete everything that was related to our other track. So I'll delete that one. This map be just a picture of the track, so you can take a nice screenshot or something and put that in there. And then in our UI, oh, look, I've got Alex's nice face there. This is our kind of details on the track. So if I open that up with Notepad, see here like the track name, description. This doesn't change anything with the like the file path or anything like that. This is just kind of the display in Assetto Corsa, but obviously you don't want two tracks with the same name. So we might call this one Newcastle Kart. You can add all descriptions in here, all different things, the location, etc. It's not really super important. And then we'll go save that one. Alright. So now we can move this over here. All these other ones don't have anything that's related to our track. We can go through and have a look at some of them more a bit later. Alright, so if we now close all of these, open up our Assetto Corsa. Menu, drive. We already have our car selected. Yeah. And then if we go through, have Newcastle Kart Club. You can see we have that picture of Alex, which is obviously why that's showed up there. But yeah, we can change those. So if we click on that, make sure it's on practice. We'll go through some of the different settings in here in a future video. Alright, hopefully if we've done everything right, we would have loaded into our track. If it doesn't load for some reason, usually it's something to do with your file naming convention, so probably just double check your names and make sure nothing's spelled wrong. If we click drive, we can see that our sun positioning isn't great for visibility, but we can always change that later. And we have a functioning track in Assetto Corsa. Obviously you'll notice that a few bumps, but these are things that we can iron out later, and the best way to usually determine where all the bumps are is just by driving around the track. Well, for this video, then the next video we'll have a look at some of the more advanced features of Assetto Corsa, of Racetrack Builder, and how we can create more Formula E style tracks. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.